The jet was supposed to leave at sunrise, slicing through a flawless blue sky like every other day, but instead, it sat grounded on the runway, silent and humiliated, as if it knew its secret had just been exposed. The inspection team stepped away slowly, their faces tense, their silence louder than any alarm. One of them finally shook his head, and in that moment, everything changed. The CEO's prized private jet, his symbol of power, precision, and control, had just failed a critical safety inspection. And no one could understand how. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Wisdom Story House. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the most unexpected people carry the greatest truths. Adrian Vale stood at the edge of the runway, his expensive suit catching the early morning light, his jaw tight with disbelief. He had built his empire on perfection. Nothing slipped through his control, not his business, not his image, and certainly not his jet. The aircraft was maintained by the best engineers money could buy. Every bolt, every wire, every detail was supposed to be flawless. But today, something had gone terribly wrong. The inspectors had found a fault deep within the hydraulic system, a failure that could have caused catastrophic consequences mid-flight. It wasn't just an error. It was negligence. Someone had missed something critical. Adrian felt the weight of it settle into his chest, heavy and suffocating. His company was built on trust. Investors trusted him. Clients trusted him. Even his employees believed in his standard of excellence. And now, this. Behind him, a quiet figure pushed a cleaning cart along the edge of the hangar. Most people never noticed him. He moved like a shadow, blending into the background of polished floors and gleaming steel. His name was Elias Rowan, a janitor who had worked at the facility for nearly 8 years. Elias kept his head down, as he always did. He wore simple clothes, slightly worn, but always clean. His hands were rough, marked by years of labor, but his movements were careful, precise. He noticed things others didn't. Small things. Important things. And this morning, he had noticed something. The night before, while finishing his shift, Elias had paused near the jet. It wasn't his job to inspect it, but something had caught his eye, a faint, almost invisible leak beneath the undercarriage. A thin sheen that reflected the overhead lights differently. Most would have walked past it. But Elias had crouched down, studied it, and felt a quiet unease settle in his gut. He had considered telling someone. But who would listen to a janitor? So he had gone home, carrying that worry with him like a stone in his pocket. Now, as the truth unfolded in front of him, that stone grew heavier. Adrian's voice cut through the morning air as he demanded answers from the maintenance crew. His tone wasn't loud, but it carried a sharp edge that made everyone tense. No one stepped forward. No one wanted to admit fault. Because in Adrian Vale's world, mistakes had consequences. Elias hesitated. His hands tightened around the handle of his cart. He could stay silent. No one expected anything from him. No one would blame him. But then he thought of his son. Noah Rowan was 7 years old, with curious eyes and a heart far too big for the small apartment they lived in. Elias had raised him alone since the day Noah's mother walked out without a word. Life hadn't been easy, but Elias had always taught his son one thing above all else: do the right thing, even when it's hard. And now, standing in that hangar, Elias realized he couldn't walk away. He stepped forward slowly, his voice quiet but steady as he spoke. At first, no one noticed. Then Adrian turned. Their eyes met, one man dressed in power, the other in humility. For a brief moment, the entire hangar seemed to hold its breath. Elias explained what he had seen. The leak. The location. The way it had looked wrong. The engineers exchanged glances, uncertain, skeptical. But Adrian didn't interrupt. He watched Elias carefully, as if trying to read something deeper than his words. Finally, he gestured for the inspection team to check the spot Elias described. Minutes passed. Tension thickened. Then one of the inspectors called out. Elias had been right. The fault had originated exactly where he said. A small oversight. A missed detail. But one that could have cost lives. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The engineers looked uneasy, their confidence shaken. Adrian remained still, but something in his expression changed, something softer, quieter. He turned back to Elias. For the first time, he truly saw him. Not just as a janitor, but as a man. And in that moment, curiosity replaced authority. Later that day, Adrian requested Elias's file. It was thin. Too thin. 8 years of work reduced to a few lines of basic information. No complaints. No promotions. No recognition. But there was something else. A note about his background. Elias hadn't always been a janitor. Years ago, he had worked as a mechanical technician for a small aviation company. He had been skilled. Promising. Until the company went bankrupt, leaving him unemployed overnight. Shortly after, his wife left. And Elias had taken whatever job he could find to support his son. He never returned to his field. Adrian leaned back in his chair, absorbing the information. There was something unsettling about it. Not the facts themselves, but what they represented. Talent, hidden in plain sight. Potential, overlooked. That evening, Adrian made a decision. The next morning, Elias was called into the main office. He walked in cautiously, unsure of what to expect. His heart pounded as he stepped into a world that felt completely foreign to him. Adrian didn't waste time. He offered Elias a position, not as a janitor, but as part of the maintenance team. It wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. Elias stood there, stunned. For years, he had accepted his place in the background. He had buried his skills beneath routine, convinced himself that this was all life had left for him. And now, suddenly, everything was shifting. He thought of Noah. Of the life he wanted to give him. Of the example he wanted to set. And for the first time in years, Elias allowed himself to hope. The transition wasn't easy. The maintenance team was skeptical at first. Some resented him. Others doubted him. But Elias didn't argue. He didn't try to prove himself with words. He worked. Quietly. Consistently. Day after day, he showed up early, stayed late, and paid attention to every detail. The same careful observation that had once gone unnoticed now became his greatest strength. Slowly, attitudes began to change. Respect replaced doubt. Trust replaced skepticism. And Adrian watched it all from a distance. For him, this wasn't just about one man. It was about something bigger. A realization that perfection didn't come from control, but from understanding the people behind the system. Months passed. The jet was back in service, stronger and safer than before. But the real transformation wasn't in the aircraft. It was in the people. Elias found a new rhythm in his life. His days were still long, but they carried a different kind of weight, a meaningful one. And at night, when he returned home, Noah would greet him with the same bright smile, asking endless questions about airplanes and engines. Elias would answer every one of them. Because now, he believed those dreams could become real. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in warm shades of gold, Elias stood beside the jet. Adrian joined him, hands in his pockets, his expression thoughtful. Neither of them spoke for a while. They didn't need to. Because some moments say everything without words. If this story has touched your heart in any way, take a moment to like, share, and comment. Your support helps stories like this reach more people who need to hear them. And before we reach the end, here's a special request. Comment, "Kindness wins," if you believe that even the smallest act of courage can change a life. Because sometimes, it only takes one moment. One decision. One voice willing to speak up. To remind the world that greatness doesn't always stand in the spotlight. Sometimes, it quietly pushes a cleaning cart, waiting to be seen.